The Seattle Seahawks are Super Bowl champions. Welcome to the Phil Talk Sports Podcast, Super Bowl post-show, only about a week late. But here we are. I'm here with Hank and Nick, and we've had enough time to absorb the big game. And Seattle stands tall over New England, final score of 29-13. Before anyone else talks, I just want to throw it out there that I predicted 31-17, which has got to be the closest score I've ever predicted for any of these things. But guys, how's it going? Thanks for being here. Happy Friday night.
Pretty good, I tell you. I was not only a little off, I was way off on what ended up happening. But you know what? If one of us three gets a game right, then that's a win for the podcast. So you let people know ahead of time what was going to happen. But nonetheless, yep, glad to be here and kind of shaking off a little of the rust here, back on the podcast circle.
Yes, Phil was the only one of us to get it right, but let us also bathe in the awesomeness of some of the predictions that I got right. I did guess that Jason Myers would hit the first field goal, and I will also say that Phil and I both said that Matt Collins would be the breakout player of the game. I said that he would have at least 75 receiving yards and 1 touchdown, which he did. And that was the only thing I got right about this game. Those are the only
So
two
basically, Nick had the off night here. Me and Hank were humming over here, and Nick's just over there. But no, we did get Matt Collins was the breakout star for New England, but that did not really matter a whole bunch. But good for Matt Collins, Super Bowl champion still in our books because of his time with the Philadelphia Eagles. So congrats to Matt Collins for sure for his performance. Which you cannot say the same about guys like Stephon Diggs in this. He lost the game on and off the field that night. For those that keep up with the players off the field lives, I really don't, but it was kind of something you couldn't avoid, just being the type of storylines that happened there. Not a good day for Diggs.
His domestic partnership with one Cardi B seems to be over now. So, I mean, that sucks for him. Everyone remembers that Stephon Diggs was the player basically on the Vikings and the Buffalo Bills and now the New England Patriots who has to stand there and watch the confetti fly. I'm so sorry, but I am also not so sorry based on your current legal allegations. Not sorry.
I think that's a fair point.
Yeah. I'm really crushed. I got pretty much everything wrong, even though I predicted Kobe Bryant would be the star of the night. And he had a nice pick that just hit him in the worst spot, right in the hands, and he dropped it. I saw that first play of the Drake May's night, and I'm like, oh, here we go. So, but hilariously wrong on the predictions for Super Bowl 60. And you know what? That puts me right in line with everybody, baby. Talking heads on sports talk shows. It's not about getting it right. It's about being fun, right? So, but yeah, to me, the Patriots, I'm not really breaking any news here. They just put up a clunker. They're better than that. We knew Seattle was the better team, but we didn't think, okay, like Seattle is like by the end of the first quarter, it'll already be basically over. And that was what it was. I mean, they won by a couple touchdowns. But to me, if Sam Darnold had the mindset of I'm going to play my normal game, they probably win by 3 or 4. But I think Sam Darnold and Seattle knew that, New England can't move the ball at all. So let's just not turn it over, and eventually a big play will break out. We may only need 10 or 13 to win the game, and that they proved to be right.
I think a good way to sum this game up is even when the game ended, there was a real possibility that kicker Jason Myers could have won MVP. And while it would have been weird, you really couldn't have questioned it. Because even if the only points Seattle scored were those off the foot of Jason Myers, they still managed to win this game. And you mentioned, Sam Darnold didn't have the best game of his season in this game, but he kind of decided, like we've seen other teams do, they kind of have the Patriots where they want them, but they decide to air it out a little too much. Turnover happens. Darnold basically said, like, if you're waiting for me to make the mistake that gets you back in this game, it's not coming. So I'm just going to continue to do what I'm doing. I'm going to give it to Walker, who had a fantastic game. If that 60-yard touchdown run isn't called back, then he's no pun intended, the runaway MVP. But I do think he was very deserving because he was the only one that consistently moved the ball for Seattle and got them in field goal range for a lot of those field goals early on. So let's start with that. Do you think that was the correct MVP choice?
No.
Interesting. So I'm mixed on it. I think probably yes, but I would say without a doubt yes, if the defense wasn't phenomenal. And I get it, there wasn't one single guy that you can really point out. But I thought maybe you could put a case on either Ernest Jones or on someone who had a couple sacks. Uchenna Nwosu, former Charger, with the touchdown defensively. You could go a couple of ways, but Kenneth Walker's probably the pick for me, even though it just kind of sucks. It's like they were a victim of their own success. The defense was too good. If they were not quite as good and a couple less guys didn't play well, then maybe somebody wins it there. But good pick. You can go a lot of ways.
I
Hank, your
think
thoughts?
I think the last time there was a defensive Super Bowl MVP, I think it was Von Miller. And if you remember in that Super Bowl, Von Miller had like 2 forced fumbles in that game. So it was like an obvious Super Bowl MVP situation because Peyton Manning was not going to be the Super Bowl MVP. Ever since then, I think they've given the Super Bowl MVP to an offensive player. But in this situation, as he was the guy who I what was it? Was it 12-0 at one point? Was that the score, 12-0?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, if he doesn't score those points, then they're not up by that score in that game, and they don't score that touchdown. Did they? That was the late. It was the late third quarter. They scored their first touchdown to the tight end, right?
Yeah.
Late third quarter. So if I'm not going ahead and saying that those points were like the difference, but he was the one who scored all the points up until the end of the third quarter. So in my mind, with the fact that Sam Darnold is barely completing 50%, which again, like I don't think that that's that big of an issue because you're in the Super Bowl. A lot of people would probably be saying like, "Oh, you got to have guys who have stellar performances." No, as a fan of a team that has won 2 Super Bowls, none of that matters. It's how you win the game. If your quarterback is the catalyst in you winning the game, then you go with that. But if he's not, if Sam Darnold just wants to sit back and hand the ball off and complete 50%, that's fine. It's whatever's going to win you the Super Bowl. No one in your organization is going to look back and be like, well, if only Sam Darnold, I keep thinking Sam Bradford, if only Sam Darnold had completed more than 50% of his passes, that would have been a way better. No, it doesn't matter. But I still think I'd say Kenneth Walker otherwise, but I mean, you just don't get those points without your kicker. And I heard the reason why he didn't win it all is because they didn't put his name on the list of people you can choose until much later in the game.
Mm.
People could not choose his name, which I think is unfair. And I know like it's for the brand, what Phil would always say, but I think he deserved it. I think that if there was one guy who absolutely deserved the Super Bowl MVP of a Super Bowl, the guy who scored more points than anyone else in that game, it was him.
Yeah. By the
And
way, shout out for the
and it's
brand Michael
yeah,
Dixon. He
what?
should be in
Yes.
on that list too.
Oh yeah,
The
he
the
did well
punter.
too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Three
he was
inside the
coffin
10,
kicking.
2 inside the 5. Yeah, the guy was on it.
He was coffin
Absolutely.
kicking all game, and no
Yeah.
one coffin kicks anymore.
Right.
They all just try to make sure that it rolls close to the end zone. But I just think that this was one of those situations where you have to at least consider him because he scored more points than anyone else in the game, not just extra points and field goals. No, 12 points was the game. No one Walker scored 6, Darnold and the tight end scored 6. There was a pick 6 or a fumble 6. No. This is one of those situations where I think that he should have had at least a 33% chance of winning Super Bowl MVP.
I mean, if the issue, I agree with you 100%. If you are just looking at it from just, I'm looking at this game, who was most valuable? Because if when it's 6-0 and 9-0, and it was for like big stretches of that game, if you miss the first or second one, it's only 3-0. If you miss the third one, it's only 6-0. The Patriots are like, hey, we've been here before. We're in this ugly ass game that we're still one score puts us ahead. Like, it changes the whole dynamic of it. If I had a vote, and I don't know why anyone would ever trust me with such things, I would have voted for Myers. And I think a kicker should always be on the docket because games like this could always happen. So if the issue is we didn't think to put his name as a selectable option until way later in the game, that should, no matter, both teams' kickers should be options. Because if it's a 10-7 game, but the kicker drills a 60-yarder at the gun to win it, then yeah, that guy's the MVP. He had the most clutch moment of the Super Bowl. So I would agree with you that, um, truthfully, that's who it should have been. I get why Walker got it. It's you could
Yeah.
almost, the defense won this game, and you can fast forward or rewind, I should say, back to last year. They gave it to Jalen Hurts because they couldn't nail down just one defensive player, right? They could have maybe given it to Sweat. They could have maybe given it to Milton Williams. There was outside chances of that. But Jalen played well enough to separate, like, all right, if you can't give it to one defensive guy, we can give it to one
It,
offensive guy. We can't give it to and of course I'm going to bring up the Eagles here when we're trying to talk about the Seahawks. Darnold, nowhere are the numbers well enough to give him the Super Bowl MVP, and he does not give a damn. He did exactly what was needed to
and
win, and he is
and no
fine with that.
and no one, and I'm going to say this because everyone on the internet is talking about how elite Darnold is and this and that. It doesn't matter because you won the Super Bowl. Okay? You won, besides like going to the Hall of Fame, which I don't think Sam Darnold is going to go to the Hall of Fame. That's just me at this point. Maybe he pulls a Matthew Stafford and wins an MVP down the line, but it doesn't matter. Like, you won the Super Bowl. You could have completed one pass for -1 yards and played it safe the whole game and won the Super Bowl. It does not matter. It does not stick on his legacy at all. He played one heck of a season. To me, there's a good chance he could have been a Pro Bowler. As someone who has who Jalen, I'm not trying to make it about myself or my team. Jalen won the Super Bowl. He won the Super Bowl MVP. He he was, in my opinion, he was a top 3 player on the field at any one time. They usually give it to the quarterback, and I've seen quarterbacks play worse games and still get Super Bowl MVP. Like Patrick Mahomes played a worse game against the 49ers. He still gets the Super Bowl MVP. Both of Eli Manning's Super Bowls, he didn't have nearly as good of a game as Jalen Hurts did, and he still won 2 Super Bowl MVPs. So Darnold shouldn't get it. I think that at the least it should be Kenneth Walker / if you give it to co-MVPs, you give it to both of them at the same time.
Yeah, I think back to like the other question I'm going to bring up here is this the worst Super Bowl from a neutral observer just watching a football game? Is this the worst Super Bowl of our lifetime? I'll get your answers in a second because I will always go to Rams Patriots, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
Super Bowl that Brady won, throwing 2 interceptions and 1 touchdown in a 13-10 game or whatever. So yes, there's been way worse people performances that get MVP. So I will now reopen that question. That is my answer to this. This is snugly second. Nick, you go first. Is this the worst Super Bowl of our lifetime?
I tell you, it's the second worst. Okay, there was this one game where this great quarterback, sets a Super Bowl record for touchdowns, and you know what? I could care less. So Steve Young, 49ers Chargers. But no, all joking aside, I would rather watch the grainy film of Max McGee's one hand touchdown in Super Bowl one than Patriots Rams. And you're dealing with grainy footage. You're dealing with guys you've never heard of. I'd rather watch that. Patriots Rams was so awful. I want to say there was like 15 punts in that game, and it's not like, oh, fans of defense would love it. No, fans of
Right.
defense would. It just was horrible play. Like Jared Goff, wide open receiver in the end zone, throws it way too late, and it gets tipped away. Great job from McCourty, but he's wide open. Just look downfield.
Yeah, that
And that
wasn't a
was one of a
defensive
number of
game. It was
times.
just a sloppy offensive game. So,
Yep.
are we in agreement that that's the worst one then? Hank, do you agree? No? Okay. What's your worst Super Bowl of our lifetime?
Okay, so like I think that one was objectively a bad Super Bowl, but the only thing that saves it was the fact that it was kind of close. And there was a
Okay.
point in that game where it was 3-3 at around halftime. So it was a close game. It ended up being 13-3. I mean, it's the whatever you call it. It's the story of Jared Goff's career. I hope he does well with the Lions because I don't have any ill wills towards the Lions. But I think that the worst Super Bowl in my lifetime was the Denver Broncos losing to the Seattle Seahawks in Super Bowl 48,
47.
47,
Or it might be 48.
48. No, I think it was 48
48.
because next year,
That's
yeah,
a good. That's a good one.
I think
It
that,
is.
I think that one was the worst one because because of the expectations with the Patriots against the Rams in that Super Bowl. Like, I don't think I really had that many expectations because people were still complaining about that no pass interference call. With the Broncos versus the Seahawks, you were like, all right, we got the best defense in the league and the best offense in the league. We got Peyton Manning. He threw for like 55 touchdowns. Best offense, or one of the best offenses in the league. Peyton Manning, you couldn't bet against him. And then from like the jump start of the game, it's a safety, and then they get their booty cheeks clapped, and you're just like sitting there like, is this going to be the end of a team that was that good? Like, because the Broncos were that good that year.
Right.
They got totally based by Seattle in that game, but it just doesn't do that team justice because of just how dominant they were that season. And you were just like, okay, well, the score's like 17 to whatever it was, 8 or 24-8. Maybe the
I think
the
it was
Broncos
0. I
can
think the
get
8
back
was late.
into the game, and they just never did. And the Seahawks just had one heck of a defensive game. And the Broncos at no point in time seemed like they had a chance, even when they were down 2-0. It still seemed like they were down by like 22. So that Super Bowl, in my opinion, is the worst because of the fact that it wasn't even close at any point in time. At least with the Rams Patriots one, it was close, even though I kind of like games like that where it's like there's a lot of punting because it breaks up the monotony because there's so much offense in the NFL that you sometimes you just get one or two defensive struggle games. But this one just wasn't close, and the Super Bowl is supposed to be entertaining. And to me, a game that is a blowout like that, of course, when my Eagles are not involved, like, of course
Sure. I was all for that blowout. Yeah.
but like it was just bad because Peyton Manning's a legend, and when that happens to like a legend, it's like, all right,
I
that's
will
bad.
say this one,
All
one
right.
of the
So,
problems of this game, though, before you go, Phil, was
yeah.
and I love the aesthetic of Rose Bowl, Steelers, Cowboys, the last day game that we've ever had in the Super Bowl until this one, ironically, somewhat day game. I was like, man, it would be really cool to see like the sun setting over the Super Bowl again. I was wrong. Like having a game at 3:30 Pacific in the afternoon just looks bad. Like have this be a prime time game every year.
Okay, I was gonna bring that up next, so I will jump to that because I think I even said that in the chat during the game. But Hank's opinion of worst Super Bowl, great points. I would not have thought to even have that in the conversation. You have now put it in the conversation, and I see why. But as a neutral observer that I was in that game, it was an ass kicking. I was surprised it was an ass kicking, but that's a game that had a safety from the jump. big defensive plays, turnovers. Second half's about to start, and you're like, all right, it's still Peyton Manning. We're about to see some Peyton Manning. Percy Harvin kick return touchdown. There was at least entertaining things happening in the blowout. Similarly to the Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl, if you weren't an Eagles fan, you were still like, holy shit, they are smacking the crap out of Patrick Mahomes. Holy shit, Cooper DeJean just had a pick six. There was entertaining moments in the game still where this one and Rams Patriots did not. Had the Rams one go the other way, I'd be arguing to this day that Johnny Hekker should have been the MVP of that Super Bowl because of all the times he was just a creative punter. That he would pin it in the five like three different ways in a game. Like he's the guy that's memory is going to be the history needs to look very highly on a guy like Johnny Hekker. But to Nick's point, the day Super Bowl, I don't know what it is about it for me. It makes it feel less special. It feels like a 1 o'clock game on Fox. I had the same issue with WrestleMania when it was in that exact same arena. Seeing guys like Bray Wyatt and The Undertaker walk out in broad daylight, it kills the aura. And I think by the end of this game, it felt like the Super Bowl because the sun had set and it's nighttime and everything. But I agree. This is a failed experiment of Super Bowl. At Super Bowl 50, same thing happened, right? First half of the game was broad daylight. Just felt the same. So I agree with Nick's point. I was going to bring it up anyway. He beat me to it. That daytime Super Bowls, not a fan at all.
I think that you, like, being from the West Coast, or not from the West Coast, but living there for like the majority of my life.
Sure.
It's not something that I am not. It's something that I'm used to. So it doesn't really bother me. It just doesn't really matter to me one way or another. I mean, these things happen. I think it was like Packers versus Broncos was kind of like a day to night, and so was Tampa against the Raiders.
Oakland,
was kind of like a day to night. I can't really think of many others. I think you said Steelers, Cowboys was in Phoenix, and that was a day to night.
Phoenix.
And then I think there was a Redskins Broncos one that was day to night. So it, I think it just goes down to people's taste. I do think that there are ways in which you can, like you said, with the Rose Bowl, where the aesthetic always looks good with like someone's always got like a silver helmet where it looks purple or something like that, and there's a beautiful sunset. You just don't get a beautiful sunset in Santa Clara. You just don't.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. See, I'm glad I have my West Coast correspondence to give. Like I said, I could just be East Coast brain, even though Nick kind of agreed that it felt differently. But I'm interested to see, other people. But yeah, you're right. If you're on the West Coast, you're used to that. You probably don't even think about it. So here's one I'm gonna throw at you guys, and you can do them in either order. Who is a player on the Seahawks you are most happy for winning, and who is a player on the Patriots that you most feel for having suffered a Super Bowl loss? I can go first if you guys need a minute.
Please go first.
Okay, so let me full screen this bad boy. All right, so I will go with Cooper Kupp for Seattle. Obviously, Sam Darnold's a great story, so that's a given one. I've been a fan of Kenneth Walker since Michigan State, so like he's just been an exciting player to watch. I'm glad he's getting his flowers, but I'm going with Cooper Kupp because the Rams decided they're going to be the new Patriots. They're going to get rid of a player a year early instead of a year late. They're not saying that all the tread on the tires is gone, but we got Puka Nacua. We got this new shiny toy. Apparently, we shouldn't have two shiny toys, and that's why they always run out of gas late in these playoff runs when they don't have other offensive weapons, despite, Devontae Adams having a really good year. Cooper Kupp was pretty much cut to die, and, he burned the Rams on this Super Bowl run. So I'm very happy for Cooper Kupp because he's had the greatest receiving season of anybody ever in that Rams year, and now he adds this onto it. So I'm very happy for Cooper Kupp. Matt Collins, again, Super Bowl champion with the Eagles. He did have the best game of anyone on his team. Nowhere near enough. I don't know if you guys saw a thing I usually don't pay attention to. His attire coming to the arena, he was like Hannibal Lecter holding Mike Vrabel's high school jersey, and then he warmed up in it like pregame. Guy's always been weird. Doesn't wear shoes other than cleats. Weird guy, but he was on our Super Bowl team. So had this gone the other way, that is probably the one individual player I would have, and Milton Williams too, Super Bowl champion with the Eagles last year. So other than former Eagle guys, I don't have anything for Patriots. But shout out Cooper Kupp. If you didn't think he was an all-time great receiver now, um, he done something that very few other players have done at the wide receiver position to be a key member of two different Super Bowl teams. So shout out to him.
Yeah. So for me, I'm thrilled of Sam Darnold, the absolute most. First USC quarterback to start in a Super Bowl. What? you know, so there's like three different reasons why I'm thrilled with Sam Darnold. That's the first one. It's like debunking that weird thing. USC has had these legends at quarterback for whatever reason. None of them can make it to the Super Bowl. And then two, the redemption story is obvious. But then number three, it totally shines a light on how horrible some of these NFL teams are. The Jets, and for whatever reason back then, the Panthers, they just couldn't. This guy was no good. Okay, we don't want Sam Darnold. For the Jets, we want, I don't know. And then the Vikings, we need rookie J.J. McCarthy over this guy who threw for over 4,000 yards. Some teams just have no clue what they're doing, and it's like a quarterback graveyard. We'll bring this up later in the show with the Hall of Fame with Larry Fitzgerald. How he made it there with the total dumpster fire of quarterbacks he had is beyond me. And I think a lot of franchises are the same way. It's like, the Jets have had like 30 quarterbacks this century. Apparently, none of them are any good. And here's Sam Darnold yet again. You get a team that trusts in you, that believes in you, and is going to surround you with good players. And lo and behold, a top 5 draft pick. He's actually not that bad. So I love that for Sam Darnold. And then for New England, it's hard to feel bad. They've made it to 14 AFC title games. Okay, they're always in the mix, But if I had to go one, I feel for Drake May, not because he lost, but the way the playoffs went for him and how the entire media is bashing on this guy. He faced great defenses the whole playoffs, but his numbers were terrible in those games, and I think that's going to stick with him for a long time, even if he's very good in the regular season. He's another MVP candidate again. I think this playoff run is going to totally hamper anyone from thinking, oh, he's the best quarterback in the league, regardless of how he plays, because this will be like a stench that stays with him for a long time.
Oh, Nick, you forgot your Patriots player.
No, he said Drake May.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. My bad. I thought you were still talking about Sam Darnold.
No.
Okay. My bad. I was like, wait a minute. Sam Darnold actually did have a good NFC Championship game.
No, he did. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to agree with you. It's Sam Darnold. From the moment he was drafted to the New York Jets, he was expected to do great things. He was a really good quarterback at USC. And then obviously he has 3 really terrible seasons with the New York Jets, which, the scandals involved were the seeing ghost scandals, the mono scandal he got while kissing somebody, apparently. That was the time he was with the Jets. And then he goes to the Panthers, and they start off that 2021 season pretty well, and then they end up being really bad. And then he goes to the 49ers as a backup, and then he goes to the Vikings, and he actually plays really well. And then he got destroyed by the Rams in the playoffs, and everyone's like, oh, typical that Sam. Again, I'm keep trying to say Sam Bradford. Typical Sam Darnold, and then he goes to the Seahawks, and there are not very high expectations. By the way, there's no expectations for that team. They lose a tough one in week 1, and they pretty much just never look back. He plays one heck of a season. I mean, the most interceptions in the season, but who's really counting? None of that really matters at the end of the day. He goes into the playoffs, plays an amazing NFC Championship game, goes to the Super Bowl. 50% completion, gets a touchdown, which is really good for him, and he wins. Okay, that's all that matters. Like I said, you could have -1 passing yards. You win the Super Bowl. You're a Super Bowl champion. That's all that matters. And now the one that I feel bad for is someone who neither of you discussed was Christian Gonzalez,
He played a
the
hell of a game.
Yep.
cornerback
Great point.
the Seattle Seahawks, who had Jackson Smith and Jigba, the offensive player of the year, in a complete blender. That dude was scrambled eggs the whole time. Got injured multiple times, went into the locker room with a concussion, came back somehow. I didn't know you could come back from the locker room if they thought you had a concussion. I thought you were like done at that point. So I mean, that's another thing that kind of gives Sam Darnold a little bit of props. He did this without his best receiver, without the offensive player of the year, which, much like the Eagles last year with Saquon Barkley, the Eagles pretty much won that one without the offensive player of the year. So it's him. I mean, the way he was able to cover guys, he locked up. There was like what should have been an easy touchdown to Jackson Smith and Jigba. He was able to lock that dude down. That's like no easy task. I don't think a single team in the NFL this year was able to do something as cool as that. Feel bad for him for losing, but that's just how it goes.
Yeah, that is a great shout. I mean, I don't know how many pass deflections he's like credited with, but he gets his hand on or within the vicinity of 3 or 4 passes in this game that no one else was getting to. So if he's not the guy that, this game is 48-10 instead of 29-13. Like, he single-handedly stops 3 plays that are going the distance. And like I said, he gets
Mm-hmm.
banged up, he comes back in. Fantastic. That's a great shout. Just a hell of a performance. It's one that'll get lost to time, unfortunately, but just a really good, really great performance by him. Before we make the shift, I did want to say this. This was kind of my closing thing on the Super Bowl, and then I'll pitch it out to you guys. We've all mentioned in different ways how Sam Darnold did what was needed to be done, not flashy at all, not care because he won the Super Bowl. And it's very apropos of the last time the Seahawks were in a Super Bowl. This has always been my conspiracy theory. I think we talked about it long, long time ago. But the reason the Seahawks threw on the 1 yard line is because Pete Carroll wanted his guy, Russell Wilson, to be the guy that throws the game winning touchdown pass to beat Tom Brady to win the Super Bowl. Instead of, I just want my team to freaking win, I'm going to hand it to beast mode because he's right there. And all these years later, the quarterback Super Bowl, Hank, you said it. If he threw one pass for -5 yards but they won the Super Bowl, he'd have been freaking psyched. So just the difference in philosophy from that game to this game, being the same teams in it, I couldn't help but make comparisons. And that's what I'll always remember is this was more of a team with really no egos that Legion of Boom era team, looking back, had a lot of. We didn't know Russell Wilson was the head case that he kind of is. We didn't know the way Richard Sherman. We kind of knew because he was, yelling at the TV screen, but like we didn't realize the egos being balanced on that team that just on this Seattle team.
Yeah, I think we learned that as great of a coach as Mike Vrabel is, Mike McDonald is just a little bit better, And I think this stage made it pretty clear to go along with the playoff run, dispatching the Rams the way that they did and all that, and the defense, as you mentioned, with no egos. We had this thought experiment, I guess, I think in the previous podcast about okay, whatever happens, who do you see dropping off? And maybe we just did that last year or something. I'm drawing a
Mm-hmm.
blank, but I do see the Patriots potentially falling off. Not that Mike Vrabel's not a bad coach, but I think Seattle is drop off proof about because of how talented they are and how great their coach is. Of course, there's no perfect teams win the Super Bowl and then flop. It's happened before. But I think this team with the coach, as great as he is, and I know the division's tough, but with kind of how battle tested they are, I think McDonald's, all-time top coach right now, as he's proven. And I think Seattle is going to be a team to reckon with next year going forward.
Okay, so a few things. I saw a video or something like that about why Seattle didn't run the ball. I think it had something to do with the fact that Marshawn Lynch was not having a good short distance yardage game. Like he was he was able to run for a lot of yards in certain aspects, but the short yardage situations were really bad. I mean, I agree they should have ran the ball anyway. I will say that the thing that I learned about this game is that not necessarily sportsmanship, but it's more like how these guys do the game or how these guys think of the game, kind of like the mental aspect of the game is extremely important. I'm going to say right now, and this might be a controversial statement, but I don't think the Patriots deserve to be in this game. This is one of those situations where they got extremely lucky in that AFC Championship game that they didn't have to play against Bo Nix, and it kind of showed in the Super Bowl by their inability to kind of keep up with the Seattle Seahawks that they just were not tested at all in that game. And I mean, unlike when the Eagles beat the 49ers in the NFC Championship game that one year where they won 31 to 7 or 31 to 10, this Patriots team won 10 to 7 and did not play well during this whole game. The other thing is, and I don't know if you guys remember how the Patriots did their little send-off to the Super Bowl where they kind of threw this huge party and were like pumping up the crowd, and all the Patriots fans were like, "Oh, we do this every year." And I said specifically, the Seattle Seahawks need to have this video playing in their locker room all the way up to the Super Bowl, because the Seahawks kind of showed themselves to have this hidden confidence where they weren't talking about how confident they were, but the Patriots very un-Bill Belichick in the sense of showing too much of your confidence. That was just showing way too much of your confidence and giving the other team just so much bulletin board material. The media didn't even have to do it for the Seattle Seahawks because everyone thought that the Seahawks were going to win this game. That's just bulletin board material that you just don't put up. And it's something that the Seahawks didn't do, or if they did, we didn't see it. And if I was the Patriots, I'm somebody who's very superstitious about that stuff, very big on bulletin board material. I would not do that in the future.
We talked about that in our group chat when that send-off party or whatever. I'm like, this is the lamest collection of a couple hundred people is what it looked like. Like, it was open where you could sit in the stadium or be on the field, and there wasn't even enough people to stretch to the stadium, and it's just people looking at their phones and just didn't care, but they wanted to be there so they could post an Instagram story that they were there. You could just tell. So I agree, that is a great observation. I forget why the Bucks Raiders Super Bowl came out a little bit ago, but it reminded me of this story that Warren Sapp once told about because he said the Patriots. The story was they didn't deserve to be there, and then they got there and proved everybody right that they didn't deserve to be there. There was this story about Jim Brown finally gets to play in a Super Bowl. This Raiders great, blah blah blah. They're getting smoked. Jim Brown makes his one catch of the game for 9 yards and walks out of bounds so he doesn't get hit by John Lynch or whoever. And he's walking back to the huddle, and Warren Sapp says,
You mean Tim Brown, right?
Tim Brown. What I said? I said Jim Brown. Tim Brown is what I meant to say. So Tim Brown's walking back after his one catch, and Warren Sapp, because he talks trash, "Damn, Tim, you waited 15 years to do that." That's basically the situation here. We're like, "Damn, Paige, you made it all the way here just to do that." It's.
I think he said the same
embarrassing.
with Jerry Rice when he had a catch late in the game, his only
Right.
one, and it was like, "Welcome to the game, Jerry Rice."
But Jerry Rice at least got a touchdown in that game, so you got to give him credit for that.
The word I was thinking was gamesmanship.
Yes, definitely.
The Seahawks played a good game when it came to gamesmanship. They never showed their hand. They never showed they were overconfident. They weren't setting up these huge parades before this huge party before the Super Bowl. They weren't doing any of that stuff. And I said to myself, If Seattle is smart, they're showing that video in the locker room the whole time leading up to the Super Bowl, and they're telling each other they don't respect us. They don't think we're going to win. The Seahawks weren't underdogs at all, but that's a very good way to get players to believe that no one believes in you. That's a very Bill Belichick thing that the Seahawks probably did. And what the Patriots did was a very anti Bill Belichick thing, you know?
Agree. I think most people that said the Patriots would win or that this game would be close, they were just looking at the logo and the uniform. They weren't looking at the players on the field.
Or they were trying to jinx the Patriots. Sorry, not
Yes,
sorry.
space cowboy as we call it on this show. But yeah, I mean it's just one of those things. Like, this is not the same group. This is not the same anything. It's like the old Jerry Seinfeld joke. You're rooting for laundry. You're not looking at the people in the clothes. You're just looking at the clothes. Every conceivable measurement had Seattle winning this game, much like it had the Eagles beating the Chiefs. But the difference with that one was you're not betting against Patrick Mahomes, and I can understand the people that felt that way. You can't just say I'm not betting against that logo. It's just a different scenario. So things went the way the paper said they should have, the way the script would have read, and Seahawks left no doubt in their mind. While it was a wacky season, um, we don't have to have the conversation of is this one of the best teams ever, because it's not. It's a really damn good defense that's going to be remembered for a long time. But we won't have to have the where are they in the pantheon and how does this affect LeBron's legacy? We don't have to have those conversations like we tend to do with every team that wins anything. But just a damn good team and a damn good season, and they'll be remembered for just that and for being the perfect team in the perfect year against the perfect opponent that they could just wipe the floor with them. So, crazy year with the most unpredictable ending ever.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out Seattle, and shout out to Jason Lundgren, who's a fan of all of our
Yep.
channels, who has been guests on all of our channels, the biggest Seahawks fan that I know, and I'm probably the same for you guys. And I immediately, the next day, because I figured our buddy Jason was out partying, and I congratulated him and said I was very happy for him. And he said, from the previous champs to the current champs, thank you. So he even gave the Eagles a little love. So shout out to Jason. He tends to listen to the show, so I hope he hears this part. Congrats to Seattle, man. Good stuff.
Yeah. Shout out to you, Jason Lundgren, man. Appreciate you.
All right, so before we get to the Hall of Fame, that's how we're going to end the show. I I don't even know how to bring this up. We're just gonna weigh in on the only people that had a worse week than the Patriots, between Kraft not getting in the Hall of Fame, Belichick not getting in the Hall of Fame, and losing a Super Bowl, is the company Fanatics, who got absolutely exposed this year of having little to no Super Bowl merch of value or substance for either of these teams. And about halfway through the week, so people might know, like, I can go in my closet and I can get the actual game official Eagles Super Bowl jersey from last year. I have a Jalen Hurts one and a Saquon Barkley one. Those did not exist for this Super Bowl. You could buy a plain ass white Patriots jersey with the patch on it and a plain ass black Seahawks jersey with the patch on it. Looks like something you'd get at a Kmart back when those were still around. The shirts and stuff still exist, the NFC Championship and AFC Championship, but the Super Bowl merch was extremely limited, and the stuff that was out looked thrown together. And about halfway through the week, Fanatics made a statement, and they said, "Listen, both of the teams in the Super Bowl missed the playoffs last year, so we did not have the inventory on hand to make Super Bowl worthy quantities of stuff,"
Mm-hmm.
which is just asinine to me because
Yeah.
it's still this is not like if you tell me if you had this issue with Indiana in the national championship game and you said, look, out of 142 Division One teams, I think that's the number we're up to now, we didn't have the Indiana stuff we expected to have. I could buy that. There's only 32 teams. You should really just have, like, the Cleveland Browns sell merch. They're not selling merch. You should have New England Patriots and Seattle Seahawks stuff. Just the craziest story, and it's led to this movement of anti-fanatics. I'm a big collector of jerseys and everything. I have gone out of my way to go buy some past Reebok jerseys, which is the peak NFL jerseys of the time. I bought this hat from 47 brand ordered it on a Monday, came on a Thursday. Shout out 47 brand. Just better quality than the stuff Fanatics is putting out. And the issue is Fanatics is the company for every major sports league in our country, and that's who you get the merch from. So this rough week for Fanatics, I don't know what they could do to correct this in the future, except for bigger brand teams. Like they didn't have this issue with the Eagles and Chiefs for obvious reasons, but just I don't even. That's the story. I don't know if what I can even comment on it. If you guys have any thoughts, but just a wild week for sports fans and people that follow the merchandise game, I guess.
Yeah. I just have three because I'm not super familiar with Fanatics. I just have three pictures in mind, all on Twitter. First, uh, Don Shula and Marv Levy having a post game handshake and hug, wearing Letterman jackets. It's like the coolest thing ever. The '90s Letterman jackets. That's the fashion that was back in the day. Two, the next photo I'm thinking of is just some random like Kmart thing. Like it just looks like an all gray sweatshirt, and they slap the Super Bowl logo on it, and it's like $200, and it's like 200. You know what I mean? And then I'm actually drawing a blank on the third, but it's kind of the same point where it's like fashion and just the merchandise game. Maybe it's because the NFL's like, we're the only shop in town. Like whatever we say goes. To me, I think that's probably a lot of what's going on here. But that's just my thought from a long distance away.
You're talking about starter jackets, and I think it was it was two. The one that I'm thinking of was there was I forget, it was the coach for the Packers, and then who was the coach for the Buccaneers and Colts? What's the what was
Dungy?
Yeah, Tony
90s?
Dungy when he was
Tony Dungy.
When he was a coach for the Vikings. Those starter jackets that you could buy,
like the windbreaker kind. Yeah,
those things were legit. Like anything that you could get in the 90s is peak style. Like you can't even go wrong with any of that stuff.
Yeah.
The issue is, and has always been, is competition. Nike, and a lot of it has to do with Nike too. And not just Fanatics, because Fanatics is merely like the subsidiary. It is Nike that are the ones who make the products. At the end of the day, it has the Nike logo on it. I love how Fanatics has caught all the heat, which Fanatics, I mean, they should not be immune from criticism, of course, but Nike is the brand still, and they're still making the jerseys and stuff like that. The issue is, and it's the same thing, we've talked about this, it's the same thing with Madden. These are all trusts and monopolies that need to be broken up, because what we know about trusts and monopolies is the fact that if they exist, then there's no competition. I mean, the same thing happened with Reebok, but Reebok quality was so much better. With Nike, they're still like, you look at the jersey that Nick has on. Not to say that like it's like bad, but it's the same.
Oh, what? Hold up.
The game jersey, the same mold that you're wearing, that has been the same mold since 2012 when they first came out with the jersey style of the game jersey, and that was the same style as the elite jerseys from back then. Now we're within the third or even the fourth generation of like Vapor. Now we're on like the Vapor
Fly,
the
Fuse,
one with the giant obnoxious looking V in the middle of it. That's jersey that that is considered the elite jersey today. But
I'll spin around so the audience can see.
Yeah. But they don't make a game jersey variety for the one that they have right now. It just doesn't exist. What Reebok would have done was any style from that team, they would transfer over for whatever, like they called it the they called it replica jersey back then. But now they're so cheap that the limited jerseys today don't even have stitched numbers. They have screen printed numbers, and the two ones that I have, the numbers aren't even in the middle. The little NFL tag isn't even in the middle either. It's like off kilter. So it's
Yeah.
one of those situations where they're not quality because they print it
One is
out.
in the middle.
Yeah, you're
Well,
good on yours.
but that's a
Yeah.
little. But I feel like
They happen to do it right this time.
that's a little bit different on yours because it's. I think it's easier to make those specific molds. They all just have it stuck in the middle. This one, I think they've been making Nick's one for more than 10 years, so
Yeah.
it's harder for them to get those ones incorrect. But sometimes they still get the number when they screen printed. The numbers are off. They're not. Sometimes they're slanted. Someone once someone ordered a Saquon Barkley jersey and they got a 62 on the back of it instead of a 26.
That's
Yep.
awesome. I
But
will say
I
this
once saw
jersey
a yeah,
has
go
a
ahead.
little and that's not me. Like it's not white. There's like little splotches in there, a little
Yeah, yeah.
dark. Yeah.
Those things are
And
just
that
things that
was
collect
just
there.
in there.
I was
But
once at my mall here, and it was it looked like a Julio Jones Falcons jersey. It had number 11, but you turned it around because it was $20. I'm like, why is this beautiful Julio Jones jersey? Turn it around, it had Ryan on the back. So at some point, a Matt Ryan jersey patch got thrown. It was
They were both
very
great
funny.
in that Super Bowl, man. I tell
that's
you.
the thing though.
2-for-1 jersey there.
They're not quality. They're not trying to make it quality. They're just trying to
Profit.
unload the inventory and make sure you buy it. It's kind of like with the hats, right? Remember when Reebok made the hats? There were maybe 2 sideline hats that were made per year.
Every year, yep.
It's like 10.
Yeah.
And they just
This
have
hat, by the way, is
inventory.
fantastic. Like I've
Yeah, it
never, I've
is.
been,
It does
yeah,
look
yeah.
fantastic, but they
Yeah.
just mass produce those things. They don't care about quality. The customer service is kind of poor. You get that stuff really, really late. I can tell you, and this is the last thing that I'm going to say. When the Panthers won the NFC South championship, they did not have a kid-sized hat like they did for all of the other teams. They didn't even have a kid-sized T-shirt like they did for the other teams. So I guess that it was one of those situations where they were like,
They didn't think they'd win, so they didn't have it
or,
ready.
or the Panthers are just not a big market team, so we're not going to make the kid even worry about making a kid-sized anything. So it's one of those things where I bet you $1 million that if Nike did not have a monopoly on this stuff, then the products would be made a lot better. Fanatics took the heat because I guess they're the subsidiary, and the fact that, I mean, it's really ugly looking to have white and black jerseys for 2 teams that don't look.
I mean, you could get away with the Patriots one halfly because they were going to wear white in the Super Bowl, but the Seahawks were not wearing black. You know, there was a time that Nike was considered quality, but Reebok was the king of NFL era, like we talked about. We're talking about the starter jackets, and I don't mean like starter like you're a starter on the team. That was the brand starter, and it's kind of like
starter.
Yeah, starter was the actual company. And people love those things so much, and because they made them for NBA, NFL, NHL, everybody. You didn't care if you can get your hands on one of those. You didn't even care what team it was. Like kids at school would wear a Charlotte Hornets starter because they could find one and they bought it because it was awesome. Like that's how much people like these things.
Because those two, what is it, like baby blue purple? That's just peak 90s. Peak
sure.
90s is like that teal color and purple looked beautiful back then.
And as I was saying, this whole thing got me. I'm like, man, Reebok jerseys for NFL was peak everything. So I go on eBay and I'm like, I'm gonna grab a few of these that are good because people don't know what they have. They're selling them for $50 and under. And Nick brought up the price point. I didn't even touch on that. Like, not only is the product all time bad, the prices are all time. It's not even just the jerseys. That NFC South shirt had you decide it's like $50. It's ridiculous. So I bought I bought a Brian Westbrook Reebok jersey straight out of 2008, and I put that thing on, man, and I felt home. I felt at home. Like it was just it fits. snug in the right places and loose in the right places, and it's just this. It's a little baggy because it's the '90s, but it's not like it's not it's not a dress on you, but it's not like a snug. The jerseys now are just t-shirts, like they really are at the end of the day. So,
In
but yeah, that's the best way I could say it. So like the jerseys, they were still mesh. You had to wear a shirt underneath it. It was and it was just it was just better, man. Everything about it was better. They looked better. That's why like I'm in jersey collecting groups. People don't collect modern jerseys anymore. You might buy the one like Nick does for your team. You can wear it to the game. You have your one, but you're not buying all these different variants unless you go to like a Mitchell and Ness who still has great quality. They're like the last of the Mohegans. Like you talk about monopolies, the way these monopolies work in any company. I deal with this when I talk wrestling. It's what I call the Genghis Khan method, right? You ransack everything and you leave one alive to tell the story. You kill off every company except one, so that when the anti-monopoly suits come, you can say, "We're not a monopoly. Look at them over there. They're doing. Look at them and their 12% market share." Like they literally do that. And in this case, that's Mitchell and Ness. They are flying the flag.
And I was just about to say that if you are somebody who's like, hey, I can either buy a limited Vapor Fuse jersey or I could get a very nice looking Mitchell and Ness jersey for $160, you should buy that Mitchell and Ness jersey every single time, because I have a Nick Foles one and I have a Deuce Staley one in a large, and I would say the only issue with it are the baggies, are the sleeve. I just feel like the sleeves are. I think they could be a little bit shorter, but that
Mm,
is the only issue with it. They're snug in the right place. They're loose in the right place. Besides the arms, but like you can get that altered if you want to, but
right.
it's way better quality, and it's much more like the actual player's jersey, especially in texture, than anything you could probably get for $160 with Nike.
Man,
Agreed.
we could do a whole show on just what has happened to the
Definitely.
quality in
I did.
sports, man.
I didn't mean for this to pop up just yet. I was just trying to load it up. But since it's here, we will transition to the Hall of Fame class of 2026. 5 players enter the Hall. Before we break down everybody, actually, no, I'll break everybody down and then we'll get into the thing. So we have
Okay.
Drew Brees, we have Larry Fitzgerald, we have Adam Vinatieri, we have Roger Craig, and Luke Kuechly. Great list. No issues with anybody in there. I'm from the what I like to call the Mark Daniels School of Hall of Fame. Mark Daniels is the longtime announcer for UCF. He has a radio show every morning. And any sport Hall of Fame, he said the Hall of Fame selection committee should go like this. They should say your name. If everyone doesn't immediately go, "Yep, that's a Hall of Famer," you're not a Hall of Famer, because it's the Hall of Fame versus the Hall of Very Good. None of these guys, you shouldn't immediately be like, "Yep, Hall of Famer." The only person I would pause for a millisecond is Luke Kuechly, not because of the talent, because he's 1,000% a Hall of Fame, 1,000,000% Hall of Fame talent. He had a relatively short career in comparison to other Hall of Fame players. I think that's the only reason he wasn't a first ballot. But like we talked last week, there's not a separate room of the Hall of Fame for the first ballot Hall of Famers, so that doesn't really matter. So outside of a slight pause on he didn't play as long as he could have. Everybody else, I think, is a slam dunk. So, looking at this list, who are you most happy? Like, yes, that guy's in the Hall of Fame, and I am pumped about it.
I mean, to me, it's everyone on there. My millisecond pause is not Keekly, it's Vinatieri.
Interesting.
He made a million clutch kicks. However, and he had a long career, he doesn't have a particular like year or stretch where it's like, man, this dude is making everything. Like Justin Tucker was literally making everything. Vinatieri had his fair share of misses, but he made them when they mattered most. So in the end, that carried the day.
Yeah,
No complaints of anyone, but my millisecond will go to Vinatieri. But I mean, I'm happy for all of them. Maybe the most is Fitzgerald, but happy for absolutely all of them. They all deserve it.
I'm not going ahead and discounting you. I just decided to go to Pro Football Reference. Um, 2002, he was a 90% field goal kicker. 2004, he was a 93% field goal kicker. And in 2014, he was almost a 97% field goal kicker, pretty much only missing one or two or three each of those years. So
Three
it's
great years, but overall, what was his career ranking?
his career percentage was 83, which I feel like that's pretty good of kickers, especially earlier in his career, where he was like a 79, a high 70s.
I feel like late in his career dragged it down a
Yeah.
bit. I
One
think if
year
you
he
cut
was
off
a
those couple years,
68%, like kind of like a
yeah,
Jake
that's rough.
Elliott from this year.
Yeah.
I would say I would give a pause to Roger Craig, but not because I don't think he deserves it. I think that a lot of these like older players that they're bringing in, I think like kind of like Harold Carmichael a few years ago, or Harold Carmichael a few years ago, where in today's league probably wouldn't get into the Hall of Fame if he was a player, but I think that a lot of people have been waiting for him to get into the Hall of Fame, and it was kind of like when is this going to happen? And it eventually did happen. So now the 49ers fans can just be quiet and be happy for their guy being in the Hall of Fame. But I think the guy who deserves it the most is Larry Fitzgerald.
Right.
And I think we kind of brought that up early on in the sense of he never played. Well, he did play with Kurt Warner, but outside of 3 or 4 years with Kurt Warner, he never played with a Hall of Famer. He was playing with Josh McCown, and he was playing with Sean King, I believe. He was playing with Matt Leinart. He was playing with Kevin Kolb and Drew Stanton. And
All right, let's hold that quick thought. Here it is, right here.
okay,
So
so Josh
outside
McCown,
Josh,
Sean King.
but even just like you're talking like the really good ones, you have a couple years of Kurt Warner, like 2 years, 3 years of Carson Palmer, and a bunch of average and
Yeah.
below average guys.
Well,
I
you
mean,
could say Kyler Murray was pretty good, but he
he
at
had his
that
moments,
time, but he
sure, yeah.
wasn't. But it was like the very, very end. I mean, you're looking at this list, like you cringe when you see Derek Anderson or
Yeah.
Brian St. Pierre or John Skelton or Blaine Gabbert,
Yeah.
right? Or Drew
Brian
Stanton.
Hoyer, Brian
Hoyer.
Lindley,
That
like
is a very, very bad list. And he
And
played from 2004 all the way to 2020. He played at a high level each time. He was a Pro Bowler just about every single one of those years. He was a guy, by the way, who had he had something like he had less drops than he had tackles.
Oh, this is my favorite stat in sport. Yes, he has
and
more
I got
career
one other stat,
tackles.
too.
He has more career tackles than career drops. It's like 34 tackles, 31 drops. Yeah.
That's just legit and amazing. He is a he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer though, right?
No, he's first ballot.
First ballot.
Him and
Okay, so he
Breeze
was
and Kuechly were
He
all
was a
first ballot.
first ballot Hall of Famer, and he freaking deserved it.
Yeah, because
Oh,
he
yeah.
did all that, everything we talked about. Then we're gonna get to Nick's stat. Did all of that on the same team. If you are in the middle, I'm gonna pull it up one more time. If you have Brian St. Pierre, this is the stretch right here. Pierre, Anderson, Cobb, Max Hall. If you request a trade during that time, the most diehard Cardinals fan gonna be like, Larry, I just want to thank you for hanging with us this long, man. Like we really appreciate it. I always thought, another conspiracy moment, I always thought he would end up on the Minnesota Vikings because he was a ball boy for them growing up. There's a lot of people in that building to this day that he's just very close with. Always thought that would happen. I thought it would happen with Brett Favre. I've heard the story where the Eagles almost traded for him at one point and it fell through. Crazy shit there. That would have been crazy. But I always thought it'd be the Vikings.
Not too bad.
Yeah. Always thought it would have been the Vikings. Didn't happen. The guy deserves everything and more. Nick, what stat did you have?
The stat is think about all-time great playoff receivers. Jerry Rice, Super Bowl MVP Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens on the broken leg and all that stuff. Most yards per game in the playoffs, minimum 5 playoff games. You could have one great one, 5 or more. All-time best yard per game playoff receiver is Larry Fitzgerald. And when it comes to yards and touchdowns, it's not even close.
Right.
He
And
was not
this is a
only
guy that,
good in the regular season, but in the playoffs, he was maybe the best ever.
and he didn't make the playoffs a whole bunch of times. So when he made it, it had to count.
It was
100%.
like they made the playoffs like 4 times during his career. I'll never forget, and this is a bad memory, but I was at the time it was called State Farm Stadium, used to be called University of Phoenix Stadium, and I went there for the Eagles Cardinals NFC Championship game, and they had Sheldon Brown, who's about 5'10", marked up against, and Sheldon Brown was a pretty
he's good for his time. Yeah, absolutely.
but it didn't matter because Larry Fitzgerald dusted him just about every time. It was unfair. It was completely unfair that
ask Reggie Bush how good Sheldon Brown was. But anyway,
Yeah,
no, I agree. It was a
but
mismatch
it was
from
just
hell.
one of those things where Larry just played way better than everyone else did, and he wasn't a bit. The thing was, you knew who he was, but he wasn't a huge name, and he never complained. He never blamed anything on anyone. He was one of those guys who put his head down and played and never made any excuses. He was never a prima donna.
I don't have a single memory of him talking bad about the quarterback situation or anything. He reminds me a lot of the only guy close, and we'll see him in the Hall of Fame soon enough. He was Mike Evans before Mike Evans. He's literally the same, where he does not talk. He just goes out there and performs.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Evans has been blessed with much better quarterback situations for most of his career. Not the whole time. He did have Jameis Winston, but similar things.
Even Jameis Winston is better than
half that crap. Yeah,
better than the streak from 2004 to like 2007, and then the streak from 2009 all the way to 2012, and then from 2018 all the way to 2020. Even that is way better than
They did both play with Mike Glennon. They will have those in common. But definitely Larry Fitzgerald, to me, the highlight of this class. Drew Brees deserves it. The record book, half of it is him. If it involves taking a football and throwing it to somebody else, he's like half the record book. Some of these guys, you mentioned the Harold Carmichael thing, and I think 2 of these guys latch into this. Sometimes when the legend is better than the fact, you just print the legend, right? That's been a saying for a long time in just sports writing. Vinatieri, yeah, you can pick apart the numbers, especially like late in his career, is just an anchor to his overall numbers. But it's the guy that's hit all these game-winning kicks in the Super Bowl. Like, that's the legacy. The old adage was, can you tell the story of the league without mentioning them? If you can't, they're a Hall of Famer. And Vinatieri's all over that. Roger Craig has a version of that because he's on all these Super Bowl teams, but he's the first running back to have 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards in a season. That is still something that just doesn't happen. So I think he's forever. It's like the not comparing him to like a Will Chamberlain, but that's like the NFL equivalent of like a 100-point game, right? Like it's just such a
like
weird...
whatever Jokic does. It's he has 20 games.
I think Craig is really, really good, but when you look at those teams, I wouldn't really put him in like the top 10 players.
Definitely not. Yeah.
Like I would think Joe Montana. Of course, you would think Joe Montana. Of course, you would think Jerry Rice. Of course, you would think John Taylor. Of course, you would think some of those defensive guys as well.
Ronnie Lott.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's the only but he did have a great career, and a player like him who does not have like the lifetime statistics as everybody else does. I think that he is one of those guys you kind of look at of a super past player to put into the Hall of Fame. Not necessarily like if he had played today, I don't think that he would have had as much success as he did.
Well, is he better than Christian McCaffrey? I mean,
No,
Probably
no,
not. I mean,
no.
his career is going to be better because he's not hurt as much and he has the rings. So
Yeah,
you could argue you'd rather have Roger Craig's career, but he might not be the better football
he's
player.
not. He's not better than Christian. He's not better than Frank Gore. He's not
Is he
better than.
better? Is he better than LaShawn McCoy? Because that's actually the combo I was. Because LaShawn McCoy has
No,
rings,
no,
but he doesn't at the same time. You know what I mean?
LaShawn McCoy has been a rushing champion. LaShawn McCoy had a season where he scored over 20 touchdowns in a season, and LaShawn McCoy's teams were not as great
Right.
as the teams that Roger Craig played with. So
there
again,
is a stretch of time. I don't know how long it is. I'd have to really dig in the research. There is a stretch of time where I would have argued LaShawn McCoy is the best running back in the league. It's only a discussion. It's not a surefire thing. There was a point where that was in the conversation, and some people would have agreed with me. I don't think that was ever the conversation with Roger Craig.
no, like 2011 to 2014, LaShawn McCoy was a beast, and he was a rushing champion.
And it's just the cherry on top. He does have 2 Super Bowl rings. He didn't play in the Super Bowl.
Play in them.
But he's got him. Like he played. He saw the field that year. Like he scored touchdowns for both of those teams the years they won the Super Bowl in the regular season. So he does in fact have that. So just a really good class. You know, it's a little fun debate here and there, but I don't think anyone has any major problems with anything in that class.
Yeah, ironically, my only problem is I wish Torrey Holt would have also gotten in, and then Terrell Suggs, I think he'll get in eventually, but he's another great player that didn't get it. So
I don't like this format that only 5 can get in. I think they need to figure out a thing like baseball. Like there are years when 12 people get into the Baseball Hall of Fame. There's years where nobody gets in the Hall of Fame. This past year, only 2 people got in. I think you're going to create a backlog for no reason, which there is an agenda to make it harder to get in the Hall of Fame. And on paper, I agree with that because it shouldn't be easy. But it shouldn't just be like, hey, man, you're totally deserving, but the room's full. We only made 5 gold jackets. Sorry. Fanatics made them. They didn't think to make more.
I think they should I think the Hall of Fame should be like a mandatory 7 or 8 a year. You should have 2 for the first ballot and then like 3 for the guys who are like relatively new who need to make it in, and then the 2 or 3 for the past guys. Like
that's a good way to do it.
And I think like this year was one of those things where it's like, oh, you have a whole bunch. Like most of those guys were first ballot Hall of Famers, but I think that in order to make things more even, you kind of break it up into different categories. And of course, Giants fans thought that there was a vendetta against them. Patriots fans thought that there was a vendetta against them. I do think that Belichick and Kraft got screwed, but I'm not mad about it.
I think I'm not mad about it
at all.
I think they got screwed off the new system. They didn't get screwed because they're like, fuck that guy. Like that's not. I don't think that's what happened.
And people getting mad at Tony. People are like tracking down Tony Dungy, being like, "Who did you vote for?" You shouldn't have to. It's like voting for a president. You shouldn't have to say who you voted for. That should be.
Or if you do, because like the Heisman vote, they do in fact release the Heisman votes after the award goes out. So if you tell voters, hey, after the MVP or after the this and after that, we are gonna release who voted for. If you don't agree with that, and you're not comfortable with that, you don't have to be a voter, but you can't take the vote and then just release it without telling them you're gonna. So if next year the new rule is they're gonna release it, fine, but you have to tell everybody beforehand.
Yeah. But as of now, it's you voted the way that you voted. If you didn't like the fact,
I think people vote more honestly when they don't have to review. I wouldn't care either. I'd be like, hey, screw that guy, I didn't vote for him. But other people are going to be more confident. And it's like that anonymous survey at work. People get a little more bass in their voice when you have one of those. It's the way you got to do it. It really is.
I mean, when we're looking at the MVP vote, and you had 36 first place votes for Stafford and 35 first place votes for May.
for this
And
guy.
won because Dan Orlovsky voted for
No,
Herbert.
Sam Monson.
Oh, okay. But
Yeah.
but regardless of all of that stuff, it's like, was May even close to Stafford? No. So like people who were mad about that one person who casted that one vote for that one player, even if they hadn't casted it for Herbert, that doesn't mean they were going to cast it for May.
Right. It could have been a third vote for Josh
It could have
Allen.
been
That still meant nothing. Yeah.
but
Could have voted
it's
for who else was even on the I don't remember. Caleb Williams. Like you could have picked
no,
whoever. It doesn't matter.
I think the other one was Myles Garrett.
Yeah,
was
you're
on
right.
that.
Okay, but yeah, case in point, it could have
But
been that.
but it's one of those things. It just boils down to the fact that these people make their votes. You might disagree with it. You might think that it's really, really dumb. But at the end of the day, they casted their vote for whatever they wanted to cast their vote for. And I'm sure most of these guys casted their vote and weren't thinking in the back of my mind, how are we going to screw over Eli Manning? Or how are we going to screw over Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft? They voted the way that they wanted to vote. Unfortunately, for the people who got mad about it, they got mad about it. It's not like Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft are never going to make it in. And even
Which I said last
Eli Manning
episode.
is eventually going to make it in.
Yeah.
So
It might even be a Drew Pearson situation with Eli Manning, but it's gonna happen, or a Roger Craig situation, but it'll definitely happen. I will end on this note too, that it always comes up with this during the Hall of Fame time. There's a Twitter account and an Instagram account. They're linked. It's just called the Hall of Very Good, and every day they just post a random player and be like, "Hey, you guys remember Chris Chambers? He was really good." And then you're like, "Oh yeah, he was." And it's just fun to get these, players that were damn good in their time that have no shot to make the Hall of Fame, and just be like, "Hey, do you guys remember L.J. Smith? He was pretty good, right?" And then you're like, "Yeah, he was." And yeah, it's just a fun time. But no, I agree that all these guys are getting in. I'll say it ad nauseum. There's not a separate wing of the Hall of Fame for the first ballot guys. It's just what a way to diminish. I don't know if you guys watch Seinfeld, but like the bit when George is working for the Yankees and he's like, "Hey, we won the World Series last year," and he scoffs. He's like, "Yeah, in 6 games." Like they won the freaking. That's what the first ballot like. Hey man, if you're a Panthers fan, right? And you're like, my guy Luke Kuechly got in the Hall of Fame, and some jackass linear, it's like, yeah, a second ballot Hall of Famer. It's like, dude, screw you. He's in the Hall of Fame. It's the dumbest. To me, it's the dumbest distinction
and
ever.
also
It really is.
The Panthers only have like one other player in the Hall of Fame, and it's like Julius Peppers.
Julius Peppers, and technically Reggie White, because that's who he ended his career with. But
the only thing is, don't do Steve McMichael again. Like, if you're gonna put a guy in the Hall of Fame, don't wait until he's on his deathbed.
Yeah,
that becomes a factor with a lot of these older players too. And again, you can fix that by not limiting it to 5 people. But no, but overall, really good class. Don't have a problem with any of them. Another year's in the books for football. I don't know when we're gonna meet up again next, but I always do appreciate when we do this. I've been itching to do another movie review, so either of you guys throw a sports movie at me, and we'll get in with that. But I do want to thank you guys for joining us. Enjoy the off season. Happy opening day for college baseball for the people to get into stuff like that. Spring training has started, so we will have some stuff to watch here pretty soon. But I want to thank you guys for rocking with us on a Friday night, Saturday morning, whenever you guys hear this. So you guys have a good night. Enjoy your weekend. Happy Valentine's Day to those out there, and we'll see you next time.
Go Battlehawks.